word on the street is that Chelsea is becoming a retirement home for Premier League players in the name of signing experience. For me, in my own opinion, I don't believe experience is by age. What Chelsea fans mean about experience is you've played in the biggest stages, and you didn't just play in the biggest stages, but you made your mark, right? And you elevate your squad. Now, for example, now look at Xhaka. Xhaka makes more sense because Xhaka won the Bundesliga with Xabi Alonso when there were not a lot of, you know, magnificent names to compete against Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich that had, star players in their team. Don't get me wrong. Leverkusen had good players at that time. Bates was flourishing. Boniface was flourishing. Zaka was flourishing. Achempong was flourishing. But you get what I mean. To compete against Bayern Munich and win the trophy, it means that you are actually quality. And Xhaka carried to some extent that midfield. He was pivotal to what Xabi Alonso wanted to do in Bayern Leverkusen. And that is the kind of players, in terms of experience wise, I feel like Chelsea ought to be going for. As for the age, right, I don't know. I'm not really a fan of getting 35 to 38-year-old and making them sit on the bench all in the name of experience. Now, for example, now look at Thiago Silva. When we signed Thiago Silva was already ahead in terms of age, but in terms of experience, in terms of quality, you see what he gave to Chelsea. Now, that is what we ought to be signing. Does Danny Welbeck and Henderson provide that for Chelsea? Welbeck, I would say no. Henderson to some extent. Now, the reason why I would say Welbeck, no. Now, don't get me wrong. Welbeck is a very good player, even though we've, had a verbal agreement with him to sign for a 2-year contract, right? But this is the news. We've signed a verbal agreement with him to sign a 2-year contract. But the thing is that I do not see Welbeck as our second striker. The reason why I'm saying that is because in a case where Joao Pedro goes out on injury, is Welbeck good enough to lead our attacking front line for a long period of time? And can he provide that consistent goal scoring that he provides when he comes up from the bench, right? So that is just where my head is at. If we start Welbeck, can he do those things that he does when he comes in as a substitute in Brighton? So that is just the issue. Him being available as a second striker is okay if Joao Pedro is going to be fit for the majority of the campaign. But if peradventure we get plagued as always by our injuries, then there is a serious concern having just Welbeck and maybe Satpipe as our strikers, because that was the same issue we had going from last season, right? When we had a lot of injury crisis up front, and then we had players like McGee, Dilap as our strikers. So I wouldn't want that to repeat itself. If we'll be signing Welbeck, I feel like we should be signing Welbeck as our third striker, right? Then Satpev and other, academy lines can go on loan or to Strasbourg or something. Because next season, they are going into next season with all seriousness. Like, they are not, I wouldn't want us to come and start trying this, trying that. Let's go in with, all seriousness, because we are going there to compete. Now, Jordan Henderson is here we go. We've signed Henderson on a free transfer, right? We signed him from Brentford, and the 36-year-old agreed to sign for Chelsea. Chelsea viewed him as someone that can give experience to the Chelsea squad, especially in our midfield. Now, like I said before, between Welbeck and Henderson, I feel like Henderson is makes much more sense, because it's like replacing Xhaka with Henderson. And the only difference is that Xhaka undisputedly could enter into this first team without a doubt, right? Henderson, on the other hand, I do not think he's going to be a kind of player that plays week in, week out. And even if he doesn't play week in, week out, it's going to be, maybe he comes in as a substitute, maybe just a few times he gets, he starts in the starting lineup. Because who do you want to bench? Caicedo. If Enzo stays, do you want to bench Enzo, right? So that is just the only issue with Henderson. As per the experience, it's a very good one, to be honest. I feel like Chelsea needs experience, especially in that midfield. always getting yellow cards, silly tackles, silly challenges, you know, silly yellow cards is just unnecessary, and we had a lot of that last season. So I feel like Henderson coming in would, make this Chelsea squad more grounded, especially in the midfield. So Chelsea are beginning to intensify the pursuit for Lewis Hall after we've been having a lot of setbacks on the signing of left back Pep Chavaria from Rayo Vallecano. It's not a new news that Rayo Vallecano are proving stubborn in letting go Pep Chavaria. Initially, we brought in a 25 million euro bid that got rejected as Real Vallecano wants Chelsea to play the complete release clause right before they can allow the player to leave. The player wants to leave. He has agreed personal terms with Chelsea, but Rayo Vallecano, they are still adamant that we have to pay the complete release clause for their player. Now, that being said, our left back position is a bit porous, not a bit, a very, very porous because we do not have players that can play in our left back right now. In our preseason tour, I think at what's his name? Anselmino played there as our left back, and then a youngster, right, played as our left back. He was a bit shaky. He had his good times, he had his bad times in that match. Anselmino had a good performance. He was good, when it came to trying to recover the ball. But is he a good, left back presence like Cucurella? I am not so sure, right? He could do the job, but I'm tired of experimenting. I want players that are suited to play in their position. And Pep Chavaria is not going to be as good as Cucurella, but they have similar traits, right? With the way he presses, the way you know, he's hard on attackers. He's he has high intensity when it comes to defending. So players like that, he has similar player profile to Marc Cucurella. It's just that Marc Cucurella is just way ahead of him in terms of levels. Due to frustrations in the deal, Chelsea are looking at going back for a player that came from Cobham in the likes of Lewis Hall. Now, ideally, I would prefer signing Lewis Hall than Pep Chavaria because I feel like Lewis Hall has grown into that ideal left back when he played for during his time at Newcastle, right? He has bulked up. I mean, he's not that tall, even though Chelsea are looking for players that have the height now because, last season, aerially, when it comes to, intercepting area balls and area duels in the defense, we were very, very poor. So I feel like now Chelsea are trying to, you know, work on that mistake by getting players that are taller. And Lewis Hall doesn't really, get into that sample of tall defenders, but it does not mean that Lewis Hall is not a very good defender. He's very, very good, and I think he's going to, be a good addition into the Chelsea squad, playing as our left back coming into next season. So let's just see how the transfer market goes. No official bid has been placed for Lewis Hall. All these are just interest. So in the coming days, we would see if Chelsea places a bid or personal agreement or something, and if anything materializes, I'm going to let you know on the channel. Now, because of the signing of Danny Welbeck, right, this means that Liam Delap has to be axed, and Xabi Alonso has greenlighted the departure of Liam Delap from Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are reportedly looking for between 30 to 40 million euros. Clubs that are actively looking to sign Delap are Nottingham Forest, Everton, and Leeds. Prominently Everton, because I think Everton placed a bid of about 20 something million euros, which Chelsea are adamant to accept as they want something north of 30 million euros, right? So yes, since we signed Welbeck, Liam Delap is on the chopping board. But if we are going to let Liam Delap go, which I believe we will, I think we should still add into our striker position because I mean Nicholas Jackson is getting interest from Aston Villa. Aston Villa, are interested in Nicholas Jackson, and if that signing pulls through, if Nicolas Jackson leaves, it means that all we have in our striking position is João Pedro and Dusan Startspell, right? Is that good enough to compete next season? No. So we need to at least add another striker or center forward, so that we can have at least three strikers going into next season. João Pedro, Startspell, Welbeck, and maybe someone else. That would be better, right, than having just João Pedro and Welbeck as the only options for next season. Now, let's talk about one of our academy graduates, Josh Achempong. Now, since we signed Lecra, what does this mean for Josh Achempong? Is Josh Achempong going to remain in the squad going into next season, which is going to hinder his development because he might not get as much playing time as he would like to? Last season, did he get that playing time? No. Last season, I think, would have been an ideal time for Josh Achempong to go out on loan to not just any other club, but maybe a big club in, maybe Italy or Germany, right? Somewhere he can get good playing time for him to develop, because there is a player in Josh Achempong. All we just need is to have a good development plan for him. And keeping him in the squad when we know that we might not necessarily need him, right, is going to be detrimental to his development. So I would rather we get another centre back, get just Achempong out on loan, right, and develop him, because I see him having a future in this Chelsea squad, right? So instead of keeping him like we did last season, only for him to sit on the bench, right, take him on loan and get in another experienced, centre back, so that we can at least compete this season, and then next season we can now look at maybe integrating him into the squad just the same way we did for Levi Colvin, right? So I feel like that is going to be the best approach to, Josh Achempong's future, because I wouldn't want him to be sold, right? Josh Achempong is a very, very good asset. Although he was shaky during the preseason tour against this Australian side that we beat 6-4 in Western Wanderers, right? But you can see glimpses that there's actually a player in Josh Achempong. So that is my own opinion. Send Josh Achempong out on loan, getting another experienced centre back so that Chelsea can compete next season. And after next season, he can come back and maybe fight for his spots in the centre back position. And the last news for today is still on the news of Alex Scott. Now, Alex Scott has made it known that he wants Chelsea or nothing, right? But the issue now with this deal is that no suitors are coming for Enzo Fernandez, which means that Enzo Fernandez may likely stay at Chelsea. It's so unfortunate, but that's how football is. You wanting out does not mean that you get what you want every single time, right? Clubs have to be willing to spend the money that Chelsea are asking for, right? Which is not of 120 million euros. And clubs right now are not willing to spend that amount of money on a midfielder. Real Madrid are eyeing Rodri now. PSG does not have plans to sign a midfielder. Man City, that were initially interested, have signed someone else, right? They signed Elliot Anderson. So you can see that there is not a lot of clubs that are capable of signing an Enzo Fernandez with the wage and the price tag. So this could affect Alex Scott's signing, right? But I am not waiving another scenario where both Enzo Fernandez stays and then we also sign Alex Scott. But the issue now is that if we're signing Alex Scott, then what was the need, in signing Henderson? Is Henderson just there to be a coach in disguise, or is he here to also play football? So that is just another question that needs answering, right? So let me know in the comment section if you think we should still sign Alex Scott now, irrespective of the fact that we are not certain on the departure of Enzo Fernandez, or we should wait for Enzo Fernandez to depart before we now go ahead to sign Alex Scott. So let me know in the comment section which do you think is a more reasonable approach to this deal.